Welcome to our September Brown Bag History Lecture Series at the Augusta Museum of History. We are excited to be back after a hiatus in August. And our series this year is titled The Era of Change, 1950 to 1980. And today we are highlighting the founding of the Augusta Symphony in the 1950s and the changes that happened during that time period. And we are excited to have Dr. Sumner Fishbein here as our guest speaker. And I was talking to him a little bit earlier, and he's one of those that was an influential part of the beginning of the symphony. And he was a clarinet, he played the clarinet, but they didn't need any clarinet people. So he went and he learned how to play the oboe and played the oboe and was influential in fundraising and all the ins and outs of the Augusta Symphony in the early days before it went professional. And so we're going to hear from that today. But before that, I want to invite y'all to some of the events that are happening at the museum. We're always busy here. And this Saturday, we really are having a fun day. In addition to Arts on the Heart being down here, if you get too hot, come on down here. We're doing Museum Day, and it's Smithsonian Museum Day. So if you know someone who is not a member, heaven forbid that ever happens, they can download 2 tickets from the Smithsonian Magazine and get in free. And we are having our annual behind the scenes tour at 11 and at 1 and at 3. And then we are also having at noon, the Augusta VA Guitar Ensemble is going to be out in the museum rotunda. And we're going to have golden oldies and that type of music. And we're also doing our Saturday Voices of the Past with our Augusta civil rights activist. And those will be opposite times from the other things. Those will be at 12:30, 1:30, and 2:30. So you can come make a whole day of it at the museum and enjoy all the things that are going on. And we also invite you to join our mailing list, and the newsletter that's going to be for the next quarterly newsletter goes out at the end of this month, so you'll know what's going on here at the museum. Next year, we've already got next year's brown bag set up. Good. We are so excited. We're going to be doing turning points in the 21st century, so we're moving on from 1980 and things that were happening, such as the Miller now becomes the home of the symphony. We've also got the Springfield Baptist Victory Park is set up. The Augusta Jewish Museum is part of this. And so we have a lot going on, and we are excited about next year's brown bag. So be on the lookout for that. With that, I would like to invite Sumner Fishbein to come up and join us. Thank you.
The people in the back, they can come down because you won't be able to see the pictures. And one of the posters was the first program that the symphony, so you certainly wouldn't be able to read this way. I can hardly read it. I'm a retired ophthalmologist, and a little story. This really shouldn't be about me, but it's a cute story. When I first came to Augusta in July of '73, I made sure the air conditioning was working, the refrigerator was full, I had plenty of diapers for my daughter, and then I called Harry. Yeah, you don't have to laugh. So I went down there, and as alluded, I picked up the school instrument, the Augusta College at that time instrument, and learned on that, although I had a semester in college, so I had a little bit base to work on. And Harry really invited a lot of the kids that were qualified to played in the symphony, and he we'll get more about that. So the story starts. Let me think if I was going to. Oh, I want to thank all the people that helped me. Marley Grilly, one of Harry's daughters, and his sister, and Leslie Lambert Jones, Ira Schneider, and my wife. And with that, we'll start. Vola O'Connor was a firecracker of a young pianist from Augusta, Georgia, and her family was all excited. She was going up to Eastman School of Music to be a graduate there. And on the first day, she met that's the graduation picture. But the story goes they met on the first day of class, and the rest is history. And Harry was a staid violinist from Elgin, Illinois, whose father was an ophthalmologist, oddly enough. So they went through Eastman, and then they graduated. Then they moved to New York, where Vola was enrolled in at Juilliard. Did she get a degree, or she just played? Anyway, she was enrolled in Juilliard, and Harry did pickup work, and then they moved to New Orleans, and then to Minneapolis, Minnesota, where Harry was took conducting lessons, was tutored by Dimitri Metropolis. Those of you old enough to know will recognize that. Metropolis, that's not the town that Superman was from. In 1939, Harry and Vola were married. That's the year I was born too. Don't worry about it. So Harry played, they were in Chicago, and Harry was in the horn section of the Chicago Symphony, and Vola took care of the kids. I suppose she taught piano too. But then she got tired of taking galoshes on and off and changing snowsuits, and she convinced Harry to come down here. Well, you can imagine, Harry also got his master's degree from Northwestern during that time. So they all moved down, and Harry used his musical background to sell insurance, was a roofer, sold oil for a company, and took Marley with him when he was selling. She enjoyed it thoroughly. That's what she told me. When Harry played, there was a civic orchestra here, or a group of folks, but they were only strings. And Harry played for a while. Then in 1954, he borrowed $500 and bought a timpani set and organized the Augusta Symphony, the Augusta Civic Orchestra it was called. And they had their first concert May 23rd, 1954. The program included a ballet by Gluck, Carmen selections, Caucasian sketches, some waltzes, brass music, some Bach music, and the Russian Sailor's Dance from the Red Poppy by Glier. The newspaper gave it a mixed review. They said it was very enthusiastic. The strings weren't always on tune, which is a constant problem if you play in amateur orchestras. The original, the original orchestra had. Let's see. Was anybody here? I see a few gray heads, but was anybody here in the 50s?
In the orchestra?
No, in the community.
Yeah.
You were too young. At any rate, he had the members of the orchestra were from Aiken and the VA. There were a lot of doctors. There were some business folks. Irish Schneider's dad, Abe Schneider, had a music store for years. Let's see. Trombones. David Pittman recently passed away. Clarinets, Elizabeth Cook wasn't in the original one, but she was from MCG and she played. I don't know the oboe and English horn player. See, Jack Levy was a radiologist, played strings. Abe Schneider. Don't recognize. Oh. Well, I don't recognize many of the original names, but one of the there were a lot of other people that played. Canteen Jones was a teacher of music, and he played bassoon. In one concert, he forgot his bow tie, so he used a sock to put around his neck. He said, "I'm too far back, nobody will see me." Rich Brasco, who's a prominent band director, played. Sonny Conlon is still around. He was a teacher and popular in the jazz scene, the big band scene in Augusta for years. One of the other prominent members was anyway, she played violin.
Jane Mansfield.
Jane Mansfield. She played violin and was dark brown hair and sat in the back row. Apparently was an accomplished violinist and was way back then a cut-up because they wouldn't, her husband was stationed at Fort Gordon. They wouldn't let them live on the post because she was cutting up so much. I don't know the details of that. So it was a... Okay, that was 54. Then in 1960, they had a music festival week where there was champion music, opera. Oh, and in the first, in addition to the first concert, there was also, they did the first opera at Bell Auditorium. Oh, the price for the first concert was $1, and children 50 cents. And they also did later on Amal and the Night Visitors with Emily Remington, who was, if you know any choral history, Emily Remington was here for years. I think the Augusta Players were also involved in the production of Amal and the Night Visitors, and the Augusta Opera was an offshoot of that original people involved in that production. In 1960, they had a music festival week with champion music and opera and concerts. Also in the Vola had to put food on the table with Harry's running around on all these pickup jobs. So she taught piano and also played in the symphony, although there was no remuneration for most of us in the symphony. But she often played, and it was a real trip to see her play a concerto and go back and forth with Harry when he was conducting. Let's see. Yeah, she played, November 54, she played Rubinstein's piano concerto. You know Rubinstein is a pianist, but he also wrote concertos. And she played everything. There's a recording of the Beethoven's triple concerto for violin, cello, and piano. and they really had, over the years, they really covered a lot of ground and played a lot of stuff. Cleon Malden was the librarian, and he has a foundation that's still going. In 1961, the Augusta Symphony was incorporated. Let's see. In 1963, Vola told Harry to go and get the women involved, and the Symphony League was formed by Virginia Connolly and her husband, who was Joseph, who was a prominent lawyer in town. And they supported the group, had a lot of fundraisers, garden parties, waltz night. And in '63 was the first cotillion, which was a debutante ball, and that really brought in a lot of dough. So the ladies were satisfied with themselves, and Harry came to the next meeting and said, "We're going to triple our budget." So that put them into another gear, and they did. They got the money together, and the orchestra expanded. They had people from Athens. They had musicians from Athens, from UGA, from also other orchestras in the area who used to come. And the guild really was a treasure. They would house the guest musicians and treat them to Southern hospitality, so everybody loved to come to Augusta to play. See, that was 1669. They moved to 67. That was at the Bell Auditorium. You can see there were a lot larger orchestra than the original one in 54. When they played at the Julian Smith Casino, they had pops concerts. Harry also brought down many big-name professionals through his contacts. Arthur Fiedler was here, Leonard Penario, John Browning. There were a few others that, there's one other that I can't recall. Okay, so we're up to, in 1964, 65. 1970, Harry had quite an influence on the whole cultural scene, not just the symphony. In 1970, he converted the college radio station into a public radio station. So that put us on the map there. They also had chamber music concerts. Let's see. 72, 3. 73 is when I came, and that certainly changed the symphony. In 1976, 77, the president of the league and Harry went to the county commission and emphasized to them the importance of the symphony and as part of the cultural life of the city that would attract corporations, international corporations, and that was the first time that they got money. The symphony got money from the city council to help out on that score. Let's see, 73. '78 was one of the things I left at home in addition to my notes was the program 78, 79 year, which was the 25th anniversary. And at that time, there was a picture on the program, and it had myself and some other students that were there, and some faculty from the college. Oh, talking about faculty. So Vola, in the 60s, I think, was put on the faculty of AC, of Augusta College at that time. And then Harry, much later, And Vola was very upset because Harry had his master's degree, so he was her boss in the music department. Then in after 1978, I forget exactly which year that Harry retired, but after he retired, he started the Harry Jacobs Chamber Music Series, which is a force also. So without Harry, the cultural life here would have been a lot less than it has turned out to be over the years. And my wife wrote a poem that hopefully encapsulates their relationship. The style, the tone, resonating in our memories, ruby counterpoints, the perfect accompaniments to her ivory skin, dark hair, made the music of his day more vibrant. Those crimson dresses Vola cherished, Harry cherished, like the garment we recall from her final farewell, a color coda that captured the cadence of their dynamic duet.